What is happening, everybody, man? Thank you guys tuning in to another episode of Expert Mentors Live, and we've got Mr. Jim Pruett in the house. What's happening, brother?
Hey, how you doing today, John? Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. So yeah, just kind of catching up in the real estate world here, and we'll kind of kick it off here and just kind of tell you what's on my mind. So,
I cannot wait.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of a basic person, so I'm talk all about the basics. But I was thinking last night, why is it that 87% of new agents fail within the first 5 years of getting in the real estate business? And so I think about that a lot when I'm training agents or doing whatever. And so I really think it boils down to kind of just the real basics. And so what I want to talk about today is just kind of the basics of real estate. We see so many shiny objects out there. We get phone calls all the time of people want to drag us this direction. Hey, we've got this thing that we can do for you. It's going to make you successful. And really, most of those things just spend your money. There's not a lot of substance to a lot of those things. So, as real estate agents, we're kind of gullible in that way. So we think that, hey, if there's an easier route, let's do it. And I think it just boils down to the basics. So, just starting kind of my thought process. A lot of agents have been started in another business where they were an employee. And I think the first shift is a mindset. So it's really a mindset change of coming from an employer-employee relationship to being the CEO of your own company. So I think we talk about, that mindset is huge. And a person just has to really say, hey, now I'm the CEO. What does a CEO of a company do? And when I started out, I actually took little yellow Post-it notes and stuck them on our whiteboard and said, okay, now I'm the CEO. I'm in charge of hiring and firing. So I'm the human resources. I got to pay the bills. So I'm the accounting department. And so that started kind of part of our systems is where we made, and we're going to talk about some systems, but we made kind of our CEO chart of everybody in the company and where I could then move that job. Okay, I don't want to pay bills anymore. We've grown. Now I can assign that to an employee, human resources. So, one person in our organization may have 4, 5, or 6 sticky notes, but that's kind of that mentality of how we're going to grow our business in the future. But so I think basically getting set up correctly in the very beginning, and getting your accountants, getting your checking with your financial advisor, your all those folks, your attorney, make sure you get your corporation set up. And there's really just a lot of getting those steps set up before you even think about selling real estate in the very beginning. And one of the things I kind of like to tell people is, I bet you the CEO of Coca-Cola, he probably doesn't have a Gmail account. Okay. Yeah. When I get emails from another agent.
I know where you're going with this. Me too. I'm going to say, I agree with you. Go ahead.
Yeah, that has, so-and-so at Gmail, or God forbid, AOL, whatever. But, I think one of the first things an agent should do is get their own URL. And it's not hard to do. I mean, it's very inexpensive. So get your URL so it lends some professionalism right up front. When I get emails from those agents, it's just like, okay, how long, so I have to go start searching on the internet to try to find those agents, first of all. So the next step is there are tons and tons and tons of free websites that will advertise you, Zillow, Realtor.com. And how many times somebody sends me an email with a Gmail account, I go out and try to find them on the internet, and you have to have a search warrant to even find them.
Yeah.
And so I think that basic, just taking advantage of all of these free websites and if you just punch in a address on a listing and see all the websites it shows up on and go build a profile, and it's all free. Zillow, you can send Zillow a Excel spreadsheet of your sales, and they'll load them up for you. So you don't even have to load them up, all your past sales if you don't have them loaded up. But
that's the biggest thing, right? Like, I mean, even, and I always tell people, if you can get your name, and get your kids' names, right? Because then you'll be able to have it. Like I have, first thing, right? I bought, domains for all of my kids, right? First and last name. And so, being able to have that, I mean, it's something that's really simple, but it makes a big impact when you see something coming across from a professional standpoint. You see an at Gmail, like you said, at AOL, at Yahoo. So it's really, important to, the little details that you don't think matters, but it does matter.
Right, right. And then of course the most important one's having a Google profile. And then as we everybody has a Google profile. Now we're talking about AI and how do we get profiles in AI and how do we get artificial intelligence to recommend us. So I went in just the other day and I've got about a 10 page. I went into Chat GPT and I said, how do I arrange this so I show up in everybody's AI searches that I'm the agent that they should call? And there's ways to do that. I'm investigating that now. So that's what we're looking at. But and I think using one important issue to talk about is making sure you use the same picture across all of your different
consistency.
So you want to be, the same picture so they don't look at you in 6 different places and think you're 6 different people. That's the same. So consistency throughout all of that.
Yeah. But, bios, everything, consistency really, really matters.
Right.
Jim, real quick, I would love your take on this. So we know that failure rate, right? We're talking 87%. Mm-hmm. Do we know the failure and success rate of on a team or trying to tackle this on your own?
Yeah, I don't know those percentages, but I encourage everybody when I talk to them, if they're getting into the real estate business, that you will, it's stacked. The cards are stacked against you.
Yeah.
You need to join a team. And I've had success with a couple folks on my team of Austin. When he joined me 6 or 7 years ago, he actually started at the front desk, answering the telephone, filling out listing contracts before he went full time. And Ellen, the latest one that joined the team, she was she was my receptionist and listing coordinator.
Yeah.
So she had probably written, I don't know, a few hundred purchase agreements, before she even took her course. So I've had some success even training from the very beginning of getting that experience from answering the phone to talking to the people to filling out the purchase agreements from one side. Because it's, you fill out a purchase agreement and the first thing you do is you say, just put these numbers basically in here and let me review it. And then it's, why am I putting these numbers or why am I putting this in certain blanks on the purchase agreement? So it's from filling it out to understanding why you're filling it out. And I think that's a good experience. So I don't know what the percentage is on the failure rate, but I'm going to say it is substantially higher for a single agent failure rate than it is an agent that joins a team. And so I recommend anybody I talk to, wherever it's at in the United States or wherever, join a team first.
Yes,
your chances of success are so much greater.
Yeah, you and I are in the same camp on that, and I think too. I loved what you said. Right, a lot of people kind of get in second, third career. They've been corporate world employee maybe most of their life, and so that's the odds are even stacked even more against you. Right, so. Yep. You and I are all about probability. So how do I increase the odds in my favor, right? For probability for things to be, more successful. And I love that, get on a team that dramatically will improve your odds of success. I think too, if you are definitely of an employee, career background instead of, a hunter gatherer type of career, sales career, 1099 career before getting in, you just got to kind of weigh those things out because, when you're, or if you've never owned a business before, right? So, you're wearing all of the hats, the sales, the marketing, the janitor, the signing the paperwork, balancing the checkbook, just all of the things that you have to take into consideration. Getting into real estate, you're still spinning all of those plates. So getting on a team is going to give you that leverage to where you can just hone the skills to be a professional, but also, the sales and marketing skills.
Right. Exactly. And then of course, you're a big proponent of this is, creating your business plan and setting your goals, where you're going to be, 1 year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So your 1 year should be more targeted. Your 5 years is probably going to have a wider variance for, and your 10 years is even going to have a wider variance at the end. And it's always going to be honing in, your 10 years is going to look more like a zigzag line where your 1 year should be more straight, and so knowing what your goals are. And of course, you and I've talked a lot of times about my goal sheet, and we have goals and I know exactly where I'm at with my goals at any time where we have, I've created an Excel spreadsheet that I can tell you how many weeks are left of the year, what percentage of the year is over, where I'm at on reaching my goal, not only on our dollar sales volume, on the number of transactions. Dollar volume is more important than the number of transactions. what our average sell is and trying to raise our average sell so we can close more, get gross commission income. So I think that having those goals and setting those goals and then reviewing those goals frequently and putting those down in writing. If you don't put it out in the universe, it's not going to happen. So I'm a big believer. You put it out there, you work toward it, it's going to happen. And knowing where those goals are at, I think is very important. Yeah. To being successful in real estate.
Yeah, you got to have kind of the guardrails in what we're working towards, and where we're at, what improvements, what adjustments, what things we need to have in place. 100%. You got to have the plan.
And I think the part that goes along with that for me is that I went to I don't know if it was a training somewhere, I don't know what it was, but the guy I thought he was kind of arrogant when he said it. And I thought, you can't do that in real estate. I thought that, he said, if you have open 24 hours on your social media, change it right now. You're giving people permission to contact you any time of the day or night. You have no life. The book you recommended, 168 hours, 168 hours in a week. What are you going to do? How are you going to divide up that 168 hours in a week? Yeah. You're going to sleep 60 to 70 hours and you have 100 hours left for your job and your family. How are you going to divide those out? When I changed my schedule from 9 to 5 on my social media, and I try to live by that. Now, of course, there's times I have to do things, after hours. And
sure.
So forth. But it absolutely opens up more time for your family, your enjoyment of your life and what you want to do. Mm-hmm. And so I think that balance that most people in the beginning don't get that balance. And I think you have to strategically plan for that balance in your life. And so that you don't burn out, that you show up every day. The most important, when I first got in real estate, I asked the attorney that closed most of our loans, hey, give me one helpful hint that I should do in real estate. He said, show up every day and do something. It wasn't hard, but here, most people that fail, they don't treat it like a company. They treat it like a part-time job. So they just they sit back and wait for things to come to them. And you have to get out in front of that. And you have to, I read a book early on. It said contacts sprout contracts.
Yeah, I wrote that down. You told me that one time, and I was like, man, that is so spot on.
You've got to make those contacts, and however those contacts are, where a lot of people can do it social media. Some people can pick up the phone and cold call. That's not me. I want to put myself out there and let people know that I'm available, that I'm professional, that I'm trustworthy. I got a review this week that said I was very professional and down home. So I guess that is how kind of easy to get along with, but professional enough that they noticed.
Yeah.
But so I think that is
that's pretty spot on. That's spot on. That's really
kind of homey, kind of hokey, whatever. You can call it whatever.
Down home, earth, good people. That's kind of where I think of.
The gentleman here in town, that he and his partners, they took an old 1887 building and converted it to a hotel. They've got a Courtyard by Marriott flag, but I'm on the Riverfront Development Committee here, so I'm involved in the Riverfront. And he asked me, said, Jim, I want you to write a letter from the Riverfront, and if you would, just use your Jimisms in it. So I guess that was a compliment in a backhanded kind of way, I guess. But so anyway, I think that that's where it's at. But and I think the kind of the next step, I think after you've some of that is, I think real estate boils down to two things: relationships and systems. Mm-hmm. Those are the two things that you can forget everything else. And people try to make it real hard. Relationships, you got to build and maintain those relationships. You got to get those contacts so you can get the business. And whether that relationship's building your sphere of influence, and your sphere of influence, as everybody knows, is the 25 or 50 people that if you are doing nothing, you can call them and just have a conversation with them that's easy to talk to. Hey, Joe, what are you doing? Hey, I'm kind of slow in real estate right now. Have you heard anybody thinking about buying or selling? Hey, appreciate it. Hey, run into you, buy you a beer or something, whatever, So that build that SEO. But so building and maintaining those relationships, and even after the sale, I have a VIP group for all my past clients, and I do about 6 giveaways a year, and that's just another way to kind of foster those relationships. So I don't just sell them and forget them. And, we kind of just update stuff on that VIP group from time to time. But then the systems, and I'm a huge systems guy. I mean, if A happens, B happens, B happens, C happens. So we have checklists, even down to the order of the papers in the folder when we go on a listing appointment. I know that somebody can make my listing folder, and when I open it up, I know what order the papers are going to be in. I know what's in there. I know what it is. So, and the systems, and I read the book, The E-Myth Revisited, one of the first books I read when I got my real estate license. And it's why most small businesses fail and what to do about it. And so those systems, it talks a lot about systems of Mrs. Smith baking cherry pies, and she was really good. And then her family life fell apart, and then she went home to take care of the family and hired somebody, and the pies weren't the same. So it really explains why systems are important. And your systems, it's a living, breathing document that is ever expanding. You will never be done with your systems. It changes from day to day. Sometimes legal things make your system change. There can be all kinds of reasons that your systems change, but just start with your systems, and you're always refining your system. So, when I'm talking about systems, it's for predictable and repeatable results. Yeah. So, when we have a closing, we push a button, it sends letters out, it sends a request out for this. It does, all these, with CRMs they're pretty easy to do now. When I first started in real estate in 1992, we didn't have computers, we didn't have cell phones, and I've even written offers with carbon paper. So I've got my very first book that I did. I called it The Plan, Get With the Plan. And it had buyer letters and it had seller letters that we typed on a typewriter, and we folded them up and put them in an envelope and licked a stamp and put a stamp on them and sent them out. But it was like, that was the very first system that I ever created. Yeah. And I've still got the 3-ring binder with the samples in it. I even printed postcards back at that time, that follow-up postcards. And it was for every kind of, I had 3 or 4 reasons that I would send these postcards out in a series. So that was the very first. And then of course, we know computers and all that made it a whole lot easier. But
I love that. And definitely a proponent of systems, and, what is the system to create systems. And so being able to have that framework, but I couldn't agree with you more. E-Myth Revisited. And then, chapter 1 of Checklist Manifesto, you don't need to read the whole book. Just the first chapter gives you an understanding of why checklists are so important, but the E-Myth Revisited will get your head around systems thinking. And then obviously you can go deeper down the rabbit hole, but you talked about relationships. What is kind of the go-to, like for you, if you were to say, hey, you need to dive into this, you need to, read through this, or always have this in the back of your mind when it comes to, focusing in on, having world-class relationships?
Yeah. So I'm a people person. I like to press the flesh, I like to shake hands. I see people, I try to approach them, and I try to build those relationships with, maybe a little bit more in depth, with the people. I'll give you an example that, I walked in a little bar that we had here in town, and as I'd go down the bar, I'd talk to everybody, smack everybody on the back. Hey, how you doing today? And there's a guy named Corey that was in there, and I didn't know Corey very well, but got to know him real well years later. And he said, Jim, he said, I used to think you were such and such when you walked in the bar. You talked to everybody. He said, but then I got to know you, and I realized that's just who you are. And so there's kind of, sometimes you can be too open and feel it, with people, but that's just who I am. And you got to be who you are in real estate. So yeah. I think those relationships, it's paying attention to the people, listening to them, talking to them, and letting them answer, and making them feel like that you care about that person.
Yeah.
Okay. Making them feel special in that moment, I guess. So those relationships that we build, and some of them are more in passing, but I think those are kind of go in with that SOI, or those my sphere of influence people. And so and then there's relationships that I have on social media. So we do a lot of ads on social media, and I think through the first 6 months of this year, we with advertising our properties for sale, and then just ads that we have for top of mind awareness. For me, we had 306,000 impressions on the first 6 months of this year. So we probably spent $1,200-1,500 doing that. But we do a lot of just social media, just so kind of top of mind. That those are sort of second tier relationships. It's just like people that you know of but don't really know, and then there's people that just see you online. It's kind of what version of am I to you? What version am I to that person? I'm a different version of me to my wife. So that we have those relationships, and there's different versions of ourselves during those relationships. So the people online see what other people have said about me, with reviews and that type of thing. So, but I just think that you just have to constantly be making those contacts so those relationships form.
Do you, so, kind of going back to, Hug Your Customer, Jack Mitchell, and, it's that book really changed the way we looked at our clients, and because it's the mixture of professionally and personally relevant. So do you have whatever you think of Clinton, he could always make you feel like you were the only person in the room, and he could recall things, but he had a little system, right, to where, his assistant or whatever would always be capturing little nuggets, little items of relevance. I know kind of the cheat codes now with the wearable AI to where you can just, be present in the moment, but it's going to capture everything to where then you can kind of recall and start to collect personally relevant information. Do you have kind of a go-to system, or is it just you can just kind of remember things about people? Or
mine's all visual, and I don't know why it is, but I can recall things and visually see that, and my recollection of I can remember occurrences, I can remember places, that where we've met, where we've done things. So it's a visual recollection for me, and so it's sort of like I got a scan. It's like, okay, I met that person and we were there. And then it all kind of comes back to me of what was, what the conversation was, what took place on that day, or when we were in that space. And it was, so I've always been a very visual person in remembering things. So I have a harder time with things that I don't see, things that I hear, I don't recall as well as seeing. So if I'm in that situation, then I can recall, later on, oh yeah, we were here and we were that, and this is what we did. And, so I think it's more of a visual recollection for me instead of a tape recorder. Mine's more like a video recorder than a tape recorder, I guess.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah. Everybody has that. And I think being able to tap into it and, whatever that process is to be able to recall, I think can deepen, the relationships, which, it's all about how you make people feel. And then in return, the reciprocity, kicks in, especially in this game in real estate. So it's fantastic. I love this because this is fundamental, right? We talk about getting back to the basics. Everything, we've uncovered so far is exactly, the foundation, right? What are you rooted in? What's the foundation? Instead of, like you said, chasing the next shiny object. Perso has, the concept of half-built bridges,
right?
And, real estate agents are notorious at building half-built bridges. It's like, being here in Pittsburgh, it's essentially like seeing all of the bridges and they're all half built. That reminds me of most real estate agents' careers. And I love that concept that he came up with the half-built bridges.
Right. Right. Well, and I think that goes right along with that. You got to be who you are too to everybody. If you can't impersonate somebody else that's successful, you can copy off of them and do the things that made them successful, but you can never talk like them or answer like them or whatever. You can use a lot of the skills, but you have to be you. And and part of my market allows me to, but I wear blue jeans to work every day. We're just try to be approachable. And so I am kind of who I am, and it took me a long time to, it's like, well, I want to emulate that person, or I want to be, that. And it's people will do business with it because they know you, like you, and trust you.
That's right.
And so just be who you are. And the other flip side of that is once you know who you are, is know your value. Okay. Your presence should add value to any transaction, right? Your presence and knowing your value in that transaction. And I think that the hardest thing for new agents is expressing their value and saying what needs to be said at the right time. So it's difficult to say uncomfortable things to people we don't know well. And a lot of times we're in a situation, we may have just met a seller and we're in an interview, but saying those uncomfortable things that need to be said is what they're paying us for. Okay. They're not paying us to be a tape recorder. We've all seen those tape recorder agents where you could set a tape recorder down at the listing presentation, and whatever the seller says, that tape recorder runs back and puts that on the MLS instead of saying, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, here's the reason that we need to discuss this, or whatever the topic is. And so, once you know your value to the situation and can articulate your value to someone, you're going to make more money in the end. Absolutely. I like this job really well, but if I didn't get a paycheck, at the end of the transaction, we
would do something else.
We wouldn't be here.
I could do something else.
Profit's not a dirty word, so we can make a profit.
I love that, and I'm glad you brought that up. I forget, it was it might have been Ryan Dice or somebody was like, I don't want to hear your goals. I want to know what your value proposition is.
Right.
Like, your goals don't mean anything to me if I don't know what your value is. Now we know your value proposition. Now I can help you with your goals. Right. And I just loved how he framed that. And I'm like, dang, man, that is like, what is the value promise? What's the value that you bring to the marketplace? And, does that value align to the starving market? What does that value align to? And you and I've talked about it. And it's the kind of the couple, in the absence of value is when people question price. And then again, value unarticulated is value unappreciated. And so being able to know the value that you bring to the market is super, super foundational, basic, if you want to call it, but it is the thing that you're constantly have to be thinking about.
Right. Yeah. It's, and being able to articulate it in more than one way when people ask, because everybody's going to be different, and it can't be a standard canned answer, but you can have several standard canned answers that this is the situation, this one applies, and I think just being able to practice that. I went just a quick story. I went to Frank Hawley's drag racing school on a motorcycle several years ago, and he told us to practice it in perfect timing. Perfect practice makes perfect. Bad practice makes bad. So where you had to, they would start the bike for you, but you reach over with your right hand, grab the clutch, reach down with your left hand, put it in first gear, come up through neutral, put it in the second gear, wide open throttle, flick your wrist, do a burnout. It's all of that stuff. And he told a story that there was a guy that was terrible, and he came back the next year. And he said, "Oh, you must have bought a motorcycle. You're 1,000 times better than you were when you were here last year." He said, "Nope, I've practiced this every day, sitting on my couch multiple times." And that's when it's so. It sounds kind of corny to stand in front of the mirror and practice some of your conversations that you need to say to a buyer or seller, but it's you need to. It's playing the movie in your head. And so you've got the movie, it's just stored somewhere. And when it comes time for that movie, you just push play on that movie and it comes out. You've practiced it enough times that it just flows off your tongue and it just goes. So you've got sometimes you almost feel like you're watching yourself.
Yes. I love that, Jim, because, for me, growing up, playing golf, right? So like I learned a lot of things that can be of great value, but things that can kind of hinder you. Like I have the ability to just close things out, right? Because I grew up learning, let go of the last shot, move on, be in the present, the next thing. So like I'll put things in a box, and I'm really good at that. And so, but I remember hearing stories about, golfers that would, elite level golfers that went away to fight the war. and however many years they were away, but then they come back and then they break par right from coming out. And they're like, did you practice while you were over there? And it's like, no, yeah, every day in my mind. Yeah. I visualized every shot, every angle, every mark of the swing, everything. I could visualize it in my head. I was practicing every day.
Right.
So I physically wasn't hitting the golf ball, but every day I was practicing in my mind. And that always stuck with me to your point, right? It's always, you're always practicing. You're always going through it, right. To really maintain that level.
Yep. So, and besides, it was just fun to go fast on a motorcycle too. So that was,
of course, that too.
But I've always liked speed and noise. I want to hear my gasoline burn. But anyway,
yes.
So I think a part of that is, working, the difference between working on your business and working in your business. So we get so bogged down, I think, a lot of times just working in our business that we don't have time to work on our business. And so. Yeah. And I think everybody understands the difference, but when you get a call and you go show property and you write an offer, and then you're doing certain things, and I'll kind of insert here that if a person wants to make $416,000 a year, you've got to be worth $200 an hour for 40 hours a week, and that's $416,000 a year. So you've got to work on the parts of your business that make you money and hire out the things that are less than $200 an hour. But you get so busy working on this deal, and then another deal comes, and then you don't have any time to work on your business. And that goes back to those goals and plans and that sort of thing. Is you have to schedule that time. I'm a slave to my calendar. Okay. You have to be a slave to your calendar. And both of my listing coordinator and my transaction coordinator have access to my calendar, and I do what my calendar says. So they put something on there. I look in the morning, okay, what's my day? Or sometimes, the night before, I look, okay, that's what I got to do tomorrow. I get up in the morning, I look at my schedule again, kind of prepare myself mentally for, okay, that appointment, that's that. Okay, let's run through that in my head. How's that appointment going to go? And then, kind of through the day. But scheduling all of those things is and so you got to schedule time to work on your business, to say, okay, these are my goals. These are where do we want to go. So I think, you have to decipher, differentiate the time between working in and on your business. And I think a lot of times we get distracted by noise, stuff that doesn't matter. If one of my gals are in here and we're working on something, and they'll say, if I kind of get distracted on something on the computer, or somebody texts or something, they just say, squirrel. Get back to it. You're not chasing squirrels right now. We got to stay on this. So I think blocking out a lot of the noise. A lot of times, you have to know your business and you have to know your competition, but you don't have to be so engrossed in your competition that you lose, your side of where you're at. Okay, I'm aware that what they're doing and so forth, but a lot of that stuff is just noise. Blocking out that noise, like we talked about, is just turn that noise off, put on blinders, however what you want to say it is, just focus on what's in front of you, what's important to you, what's important to your business, for you and your family, and your business. So blocking out that noise, I think, is very important, because we as realtors, we get distracted so easily. I think that's just part of it. And I think being able to block that out is really important. And then one of the notes I'd made here was that, when you work on your business, you need to be in the right rooms with the right people. And so I can pinpoint back years ago that I was with a small local company, and then I had a Remax office for 10 years. And some of the rooms I got into at that point changed my life, and that continues to happen with the acquaintances you make at a high level, and the rooms that you can get into. And some of them are virtual rooms or whatever, but and the people you're able to meet, that's like, it's like, wow, that person. So they're everybody's trying to pull everybody up, I think, in real estate. So trying to get into those same rooms with people that are doing better than you, so you can emulate them and see what, how are they doing that? What are they doing? What's, and part of that's the mindset part of it, So I think really getting into some of those right rooms is very important.
So important, right? I mean, you collapse time, and it's the true essence of mastermind, right? I mean, it's one of the laws of success from Napoleon Hill, right? In the laws of success story that he, series that he put together actually before Think and Grow Rich. And it was actually the laws of success that and then the conversations that formed, the book Think and Grow Rich. But one of the laws of success is mastermind, right? Two minds create a third, three minds create a fourth, and so on and so on. And you can really just, find different angles, find different little, even to your point, right, to reframe, just different ways to articulate your value, right? Like you were saying, and just, man, there's nothing more powerful than getting around a group of like-minded individuals that are just really pushing each other to be the best versions of themselves.
Right. Exactly. And then one of the things that I think that my agents on my team, that some of them have started at the front desk, and like I said with Ellen a little bit ago, she's probably written hundreds, if not thousands, of purchase agreements before she got her license. I think that most agents don't understand the purchase agreement. Now, if you screw up a listing contract, that's between you and your seller, and that's on you, and you'll pay for that, and that's whatever. Okay. But the listing contract, but the purchase agreement's between, you're not a party to the purchase agreement. It's between a buyer and a seller, and you're writing that purchase agreement, or you're receiving it. I suggest everyone read their state's purchase agreement, or the purchase agreement they use, at least once a week. I read and read and read that purchase agreement, have a better understanding of that purchase agreement than I believe anybody in my market or anybody I deal with. I had a situation the other day with another agent, and I pointed to a certain part of the purchase agreement. I said, per this section of the purchase agreement, and he's like, I've been in the business for 15 years and I didn't understand that. It's like, read the purchase agreement. If you don't know it, highlight it, ask somebody a question, So I think it's pretty basic. That's about as basic as you can get, is reading the purchase agreement and knowing what the purchase agreement says, so you can have a complete understanding. One of the things we do is a pre-listing home inspection. Fortunately, in our state, the purchase agreement states any property defect previously disclosed by a seller should not be a basis to cancel the contract. So right up front, we just do the pre-listing home inspection, attach the summary of the inspection. If we sometimes we repair items, but we'll attach that summary of the home inspection to the residential seller's disclosure as addendum number 1. Now it's being signed by the buyer when they write an offer. We know buyers buy on emotion. It's easier to hit them right in the jaw at the time they're writing the offer with any negative news than it is 10, 12, 14 days later, after they've got an accepted offer, going back to work, getting everything for their lender, thinking about moving and so forth, when they want $5,000 for $500 worth of repairs, that we headed off in the very beginning just by attaching that to the seller's disclosure. So, but I think the purchase agreement, you have to know it and read it, reread it, and read it again. So, we talked about some books earlier, the E-Myth. A couple of them, Profit First.
Yeah.
Tells everybody how to get their money in order. Profit First book. I've got it right here in my drawer. I keep it right in my drawer. Refer back to that. That's the first problem that new agents get into, is tax issues when they spend all the money and then Uncle Sam comes calling and they don't have the money to pay their taxes. So that Profit First really works well. Choose Your Enemies Wisely. That was a book that you recommended. You probably got it right there. I've got it right here in the drawer.
I got it right here. Right here. Got it all earmarked up.
Yeah, I got mine right here. And I can tell you, I didn't understand it till I read that book. So I was working in a manufacturing firm as a production control, and they took us to the cafeteria one day and froze our wages. I came back with my boss and I said, well, that really bites, He said, yeah, but what are you going to do about it? I didn't realize that was my enemy, not him. That statement that my boss made, yeah, what are you going to do about it? When I was reading Choose Your Enemies Wisely, I was like, that was my enemy.
Yeah.
That's what motivated me.
Yes.
That saying right there is what got me to go, what am I going to do about it? And I'll tell you what I'm going to do about it. I'm going to get my real estate license. I owned a duplex at that time. Had bought a piece of real estate, and I thought my brother-in-law was a commercial real estate appraiser, and I thought, well, what am I going to do? So I went and got my real estate license, and 5 years in one day. So I was fully vested in my retirement account at that company. I jumped in with both feet, and jumped in. But that was really, really eye-opening.
I love that story.
See, when you're reading that book and you're highlighting it and you're underlining, it's like, huh, I figured out what my enemy was. What got me to where I am today.
Yeah.
That one comment.
It's so powerful. And I mean, I love that. And it's one of those things too, right? It got you to make that jump and get you where you're at. But now, even kind of at the, kind of the season of your career, it's still important to have, that enemy. And I love that example because PBD talks about it in there. It's like, listen, it's not always a person, but it's more of a, that kind of that idea, that concept that, and you can group a bunch of people into there, but it's more powerful than when it's not a human, right? It's more of a concept. That is so good. That is so good.
Yep. So that's, it's neat to identify it and go, okay, yeah, that's, that was the point in my life that something changed. And so one of the other notes I made here, and this is not original to me, but fear is a negative emotion created by belief that something is going to harm you in the future. Okay. And we're frozen by fear a lot, and that's what we're talking about, getting back to being able to say what needs to be said in a listing presentation about a house, about whatever it is. And, how is it going to harm you? They're not going to eat you. They're not going to beat you up. You may lose a listing by telling the truth. And if you didn't get it, you probably didn't want it anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. If the people aren't going to be receptive to hear my experience, you're not paying me to sell your house. You're paying me for my experience, all the learning that I've done to get me to this point, And so, it really, you're paying me to sell your house, but it's the experience that I gained to get me to this point, to get me here. And that's where knowing your worth at that point, get back to knowing your worth. But I think a lot of people get frozen in fear of like, oh, I can't say that, they'll get mad at me, or they're gonna, so what,
so what?
You've got to say it in a polite manner, and where you can't just be gruff. But it's
Jim, the other thing, and you kind of alluded to it a little bit, and you do this just about as well as anybody I've ever seen, and it's really being a true ambassador for the community. You talked about, kind of on the Waterfront Development Committee, just everything that you're a part of. I would love for you to unpack that, because I think that's one of the biggest things that a lot of agents miss is, because that unlocks a lot of doors. The more that you can plug yourself in, and I would love for you to kind of unpack and share that, and then like where to invest that time versus, man, that's kind of be more of a hobby, but this is where you can really make a difference, or, gain more influence or influence others.
Right. Well, I'm very fortunate to live in the town that I live in. Madison, Indiana is one of the coolest towns that, if you've never been here, it's one of the coolest towns you've never been to. I describe it as halfway between Key West and Mayberry. And so for you young agents, Mayberry was a fictitious town on TV with Andy Griffith, where everybody left their doors unlocked and that sort of thing. So Madison's a town of 13,000 people. So we have the old section downtown. We have 133 blocks on the National Register of Historic Places. That is the largest contiguous area in the United States. And then we have the Hilltop area. We kind of grew to our geographical boundaries. We're right on the Ohio River between Louisville, Kentucky, and Cincinnati, Ohio. So the up on the hilltops, 400-foot bluff, that's where the fast food restaurants, high school, and that sort of stuff. So we have a really cool downtown area. So first, I'm very fortunate that I get to live here, or I chose to live here. there was an old man named Forey Douglas. He owned a clothing store here in town, drove a Cadillac. He was a cat about town, wore a little gold chain on his vest and stuff. So he was on the Riverfront Development Committee, and just when it first started, and asked me, he said, "Hey, would you help me put some bricks in the riverfront?" So we went down and took bricks out of the trunk of his Cadillac, and we had a brick puller, and we took some of the bricks out of the sidewalk, and then we put an engraved brick that somebody could buy, have their name or their birthday or whatever on it. And we pound them down in there and got to talking with him. I said, "Hey, I wouldn't mind being on this committee for you. This is kind of cool, on the riverfront." He said, "Okay, I'll keep you in mind." Well, he called me one Tuesday morning. He said, "We voted you in last night." I said, "Voted me into what?" He said, "Riverfront Development Committee." That was 9 years later. So 9 years it took me to get on that committee. But so I think that you have to be excited about something that you can talk to people about. And fortunately for me, and I think that EXP hit the nail on the head when they talk about being involved in your community. That's one of the important things to EXP. And so you have to find something that you love. I'm an avid boater. We're on the river all the time we can get out there. So the Riverfront Development Committee suited my personality. So we raised the money for projects that we kind of designed a project. We raised the money. We started out brick by brick, block by block, and now our latest project was about $4.2 million. We're getting ready to start phase 3 next July, right after the regatta. But so I think giving back to your community is very important. Your community supports you, and so whether what I do is non-confrontational. I know some agents serve on like the city council or planning commission. You couldn't pay me to be on those because there's arguments all the time. What I do is fun. We get to do the fun stuff. We get to raise money with different events that we have, and so just being able to contribute to the beautification of our riverfront, to the town. I think I've been the chairman of that committee I think I've been on the committee for 26 years. Been chairman for about 20 years. So it started out very small when we didn't hardly have much money at all, and now we don't have a lot of money, but we're raising funds by different events and different things, and we're able to. We've got community foundation. We have 2 or 3 accounts set up in the community foundation where people could donate to that. So it's a give back. As our buddy Andrew says, you got to make enough deposits in other people's lives before you can make a withdrawal. And so this is just one of those deposits that we make for the community and the city and that sort of thing. So
I love it.
It's a ball.
Yeah, one of the best strategic moves we ever made was getting connected in with the chamber. And the reason we got connected in with the chamber is because that's where the Economic Development Committee office was, inside of the chamber. So we walked by the Economic Development Committee office every time we walked into the chamber for whatever committee that we were going to be on. And to your point, where does it suit? Well, and some of the most important strategic relationships were developed by being on committees inside of there. And I mean, it really forged our relationship with our banker. Right. He was actually chair of the chamber 1 year, and we really got wherever he needed our help. We were like, we'll be there. We helped him, but it unlocked such goodwill with him that our banking capabilities, skyrocketed just because of our connection and being able to connect with other small business owners and, just some really key relationships inside of the community, but none more important than being able to stay in tune to the Economic Development Committee, knowing what's coming, what are they trying to do. That allowed us to be really strategic. And it was, to your point, right? We were adding value by keeping everybody in tune what's really happening in the real estate market. And so we weren't just going there to take, we were going there to give not only time, but information and resources. So I've always loved that about you, and how important and critical it is getting connected inside of the committee and inside the community. But like you said, it aligned to you perfectly. It's a cool thing that you guys get to do. So I think it's super important.
Yeah. And there's no really arguments, with the public, so you're not putting anything negative out. It's all positive, so, and being able to be the chairman, we get to make announcements and stuff, and and it's usually in the news and headlines, and so it's some of it's for personal gain, and but it's really for the love of helping the town and the riverfront, and where we spend a lot of time on the river.
Yeah, it is. It's really, really cool. Jim, any other final thoughts to kind of wrap up to bring this all together? I mean, I loved everything we touched on. I mean, geez, I got a page of notes, and just a great refresher of staying grounded in the fundamentals and in the basics.
Right. Well, and I think this may have been something you said one time. The difference between amateurs and professionals is that amateurs will do it till they get it right. Professionals will do it till they can't get it wrong. Right. So I think we've got to just keep practicing and making sure that, hey, we're the best real estate person we can be, the best person we can be in general.
Yeah, it is. It's so good, and such a great reminder in a lot of the things that you really shared. So spot on, Jim. I appreciate you, brother, jumping in here.
I appreciate your time today, John. And nothing too earth shattering. It's just we try to think we can have a whole bunch of stuff. Really, you need a pen or a piece of paper and a telephone, and you can be successful.
Yeah, and it's we need to be reminded more than we need to be told, and keep things as simple as possible. I was on a webinar last night, and she kind of broke down, but the last was simple. And she goes, it's so simple your grandma can understand it. And I was like, God, that's good. That's good. Yeah, keeping it simple. Yep. Awesome, brother. Well, I appreciate you, man. Really, what the whole Expert Mentor series is all about is, individuals like you that just pouring back in and reminding us of the frameworks and keeping us grounded on what we need to do to be the best versions of ourselves.
Appreciate it.
Awesome. We'll see you guys. Thanks,
John. Have a good day. Bye.